Hello, welcome back to my channel, and today we're revisiting DCS, or Digital Combat Simulator, which is for free on Steam. You can play with pretty much with yourself and others, and if you have HOTAs and you've seen a lot of DCS stuff, you might want to take this game for a spin. Now let's talk about the requirements. When DCS came out, roughly 2018, it was one of the most demanding flying simulators, so it was kind of arcadish at the beginning, but then it went a bit more in-depth. More realistic models, physics, and control schemes for the aircraft. Obviously, it expanded over the years, and now we have DCS where it is. There is obviously I would want to say rather a big difference between the Steam version and the actual DCS if you download from their website, and depends where you buy the plane packs for. I haven't bought any because, well, couldn't run the game. So let's talk about the requirements. The minimum requirements are as follows. Intel or AMD with at least 3 gigahertz of CPU speed, 16 gigs of RAM, and NVIDIA or AMD GPU with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. For recommended Intel or AMD, 4.5 GHz speed with 8 plus cores, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and the GPU requirements are still 8 gigabytes plus when it comes to it. Now, obviously this game supports multiple VR iterations like SteamVR, Oculus Open, even the Tobii eye tracking and everything else, so probably you guys know about that more than I do. However, I am using someone's software for tracking my head movement using my webcam, which I will leave the video with instructions for the guy's channel. Big shout out to him that he actually made that video, because that allows peasants like me actually get into VR-ish life, so to say, specifically in DCS, because you kind of need to be able to look around what's happening so you can see where the enemies are or where you're landing and what you're doing, which is rather, you know, not exactly required in Microsoft Flight Sim. You can use it if you want, but you know, in general I would say it's more valuable for DCS, and if you don't want to splash out on a VR setup, probably that's going to be your best go-to tool. As per usual, we're going to max this game out using presets. We're going 2K native, and we are running a high preset, for the reason being, if I go with ultra, which some of these you can crank up to ultra, like for instance visibility, range, and the traffic and clouds, I do believe that it might, you know, improve overall distance draw at a pretty big expense on your GPU and system, because, you know, the further you need to draw, the more resource hungry the game becomes. So I'm just going with a high, and I have disabled anti-aliasing for the simple reason you only have either multi-sampled anti-aliasing, which essentially blows up the picture multiple times to get the best crispness out of it, temporal anti-aliasing, which in my opinion doesn't exactly do much, or DLA, which is deep learning anti-aliasing, so it's technically native AI supported feature, which will try to use AI to kind of get rid of all the jagged textures, which, in all honesty, you know, it's a flight sim. Like, if there's a jagged edge, it's definitely there to stay, and I don't know, unless you can run this game absolutely cranked up beyond and everything on ultra, you probably will, you know, you just need something that can pull it. So in regards to my setup, as you know, we're running i9-99K, 32 gigs of RAM and 47 Ti, and I just want to see how it all goes. Also, anisotropic filtering is ×8. I did set it on 16, but that, as I said, as per preset, so that's pretty much all there is. So what we're gonna do is just jump into an instant action, and we're just gonna go for the free ride. MSI right hand side, and I will, well, just try to not crash within first 2 seconds, because my HOTAS setup is just for flying, it's not for landing, it's not for anything else. So here we are, let's put it on fly, and this is the end result of the head tracking using the webcam, which honestly works way better than I expected, which, you know, in reality, I would say this feels very VR-ish. The guy who actually posted this video, he's got very good tutorial on how to set up certain things, which is the tracking intensity, the depth, the curve, the smoothing, and all that. And obviously you can tailor it all to yourself, but this is more about performance test of the game itself. And as you can see, it's actually running above 60 frames, which, to be fair, for DCS you kind of want to have. So it is how it is, but yeah, man, this is something I would never expect, that an older i9 and 4070 can actually run DCS above 100 frames on high preset, and the only thing left to do is essentially learn the controls and what all this does. The translation from HOTAS is pretty much on point. As you can see, I can just move my stick or I can just adjust the throttle, and it actually does exactly, it's literally where it is on the HOTAS, which I think is quite impressive because, you know, usually the slider does not match and you need to calibrate it. But yeah, 170 frames, I mean, sign me up. And yeah, I don't know, like, I think they either patched the game or something's been done, because I never seen DCS actually running this smoothly. And I did try to launch it to the i5 96K and 3070 Ti in Full HD and 2K, and it was simply not playing ball. I was barely getting 50 frames and I was like, what's going on? I don't know, maybe the game really likes extra cores and threads and, you know, slightly beefier GPU, but is it worth it? And specifically with the head tracking, because without head tracking you're kind of like locked in place like this, and when you turn around or you try to bank, you just don't see stuff at all. Now you can actually just have a glance over, see what's going on, and it does require a little bit of getting used to, not gonna lie, but at the same time I would say it's all worth it. At least now you can really dedicate yourself, because the game looks good. For a flight sim, I must say the game looks really good, and obviously, you know, the emphasis is on realism per se, you know, as far as the realism in DCS can go. And yeah, I do apologize if you can see me just flipping my head around all the time, because I'm just taking all this in. I spent about 25 minutes flying around just getting a feel for it. I haven't dialed in the HOTAS in regards joystick sensitivity. I haven't done any button mapping, because my initial thought was, will it actually work? And since it does, I might just transition to DCS, even though it's a free version, so I'd say you only get like 2 aircrafts, I believe. I think this might just be good enough, you know, all things considered. So yeah, just a quick performance test, and yeah, as you can see, we're pulling 6.3 gigs of video memory, 21 gigs of RAM, and we're above 60 frames. CPU usage is well, pretty much all over the place. I can see that cores 1, 2, and I think 11, 13. Some of the threads are doing a bit more in the back, but still. And this is so cool. I really wish you guys could just take this game for a spin, and if you have a webcam, this is what you can actually see. And obviously you can play with keyboard and mouse as well. It's not, you know, against the rules, so to say, but being able to turn your head and look outside the window without spending 300 or even more on VR stuff, I must say it's an absolute steal. So huge shout out for the guy who made the video, showed it to the world. It's in the link in the description, and yeah, go use it for whichever sim or arcade flying sim you use. Just follow the steps, it works perfectly fine, and then you can just start playing around and tweaking. So I'll just leave you to it. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Sorry for the rambling, but I hope you found this a bit more informative. Over and out.